Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about media favorites, and so that is things like movies, music, books, podcasts, mostly things that are electronic with the exception of books. Today is my album favorite of the month, and this month we are going way back. And this is going to be a big jump from the last album of the month, so if the last album of the month was something that's up your alley, this one, unless you're kind of an eclectic listener like I am, this one might be kind of like, whoa, that's totally different. Okay, so this is not a new album, this is a throwback album, and this takes me way back to college days, still college days actually. The album I'm about to show you is really the first album that kind of went out on the market. It's not the first album ever created by this band. They did have demo albums that they put out before this one, but this is really kind of the their launch album. It's the first real mainstream album that they had, as far as I know. And it went out on the market in 1994. And this is the album titled Korn by the band Korn. And I am an alternative rock girl at heart. That's really my favorite music. I love, hip hop and stuff too, because I'm a dancer, so I love that kind of music for dance reasons, but my real music of choice is alternative rock. And this album, Korn kind of walks a fine line between like alternative rock and then more of like a screamers metal band. They especially sort of did kind of back in the day when they were first coming out. I think that when this album came out in 1994, they had their sound, but they still hadn't completely perfected it yet. And their sound was different than a lot of other bands, which is really what got people's attention. The singer has a very distinctive voice. The musicality is a little bit different than a lot of what you heard, especially at that time. And there have been other bands who the musicality has a similar sound. I think bands like A Perfect Circle even have sort of a similar tone to their music. But, Korn is definitely kind of a harder band, I would think, if you were going to compare those two, as far as, being more of like a screamer band. I think when this album came out, I think their sound was established, but they hadn't really perfected it yet. I think it took them quite some time to really perfect it and to really catch on more mainstream. It was quite a few years later before they really sort of became a household name, so to speak. And I mean, still really, they were only a household name if you were really into, alternative rock. It's like, at the time, your parents might not have known, who they were, kind of thing. But, I don't know, I really enjoy bands that sort of have a very unique sound, and at the time, their sound was pretty unique. Now, this album, it does have explicit lyrics. It's got the parental advisory on it. This album is probably my least favorite, though, interestingly, of all of their albums. But it's the first. And it's one of those where if you're sort of like me and you kind of like to learn and you like to follow the journey of a band or an author or a musician or any kind of performer, really, you kind of want to start at the beginning. Now, technically, the beginning would be their demo albums and that kind of thing, but, you know, I'm talking their mainstream beginning when I'm talking about this. So, this might not be for everybody, but I think a lot of you that are sort of following these are sort of open-minded people like I am that are following these videos that I'm doing. You're open-minded people and you're open to new and different experiences, and you're open to trying things that aren't necessarily your favorite, and you're also open to sort of, I mean, when we talk about trying to rebuild the economy, you're open to sort of, you know, putting money into things that aren't the only things that you're obsessed with. You know, you're okay with putting money towards things that help you learn and grow as an individual. And I don't know, if you're a collector, you know, you could just collect things that are your favorites. But I don't know, my kind of collecting is about the learning and the journey. And so I don't just buy things that are like my all-time favorites. You know, I used to have a friend who, she had a rule that she would only buy an album if there were 3 songs on it that she loved, that went mainstream, that she really liked. Otherwise, she wouldn't buy the album. And I mean, I think when you're a poor college student, you know, it's good to give yourself those kind of rules because you know, don't want to spend your money and that kind of thing. But you know, my argument with her was, yeah, but if you love 2 of those songs and they're like 2 of your all-time favorite songs, why would you not want it just because it has those 2 of your all-time favorite songs on it? You know, why wait till the 3rd song? I mean, we never argued about it, but I just remember that was sort of her rule and she stuck to it. And I thought it was an interesting way to go about it, and she has her ways and I have my ways, right? So this is one of those albums that if you are on the learning journey with me, or if you're trying to broaden your horizons, or you like to have an eclectic collection, or if you're young and you weren't alive or you weren't buying albums during this time, I would say start to do your searches and find yourself a copy and get it. You know, I will link some down in the information bar to make it easy for people. So if I can find easy access for you, I'll do that. So you can just click it and shop. But I don't know. I think the thing about Korn is they really have such an interesting and individualized sound, I think. And like I said, there are some other bands that have a similar tone, and there are other bands who put out a similar type of music, but there aren't any bands that have the sound of this band combined with the singer that this band has had. It's a hard to replicate sound. They definitely had their own style and their own message. And, you know, I'm not about the message. I'm about the musicality most of the time. There are some music that I think is, like, really offensive and borderline dangerous and things like that, just like there is in any kind of things, television shows, movies. You know, there can always be something that is just takes things too far. So there are some cases where, you know, I say, yeah, I can't support that. And you find that sometimes with, you know, explicit lyrics, I can be kind of picky about lyrics that I think are offensive or unnecessary, or I think are just a really lame attempt to try to be cool, right? Interestingly, this album, and part of why I think it took them a little while to really take off mainstream, was because this album, with the lyrics they were still even more, they were more of a screamer band in this album than they were in their later albums. And I think you lost people with not being able to understand the lyrics sometimes with Korn. I think that was an issue for them. Whereas later on, kind of later down the line, they sort of eased up with screaming a little bit and really started to incorporate the singer sound with the band sound and made it things you could understand and you could sing along with. And that's really when they became more of a household name. They never were completely a household name, but you know, if you followed alternative rock, then it was more of a household name at that point. So if you don't have this album, if you're not familiar with this band, or even if you are familiar with them, but you don't have it, then get your hands on it. This is going to be kind of a starting point for some of our learning kind of social experiment we're doing here. And a moving forward point. But also too, I mean, if you've got this album and you just haven't listened to it in forever, then pull it out and give it a listen again. It's so interesting to, especially when you have something that's sort of a forgotten album. Or for me, like, this was not my favorite album of all their albums, so it was the one I didn't reach for as much. Because like I said, I felt they were more in tune with themselves later on. And so this one it stayed on the shelf more than some of the other ones. And so it's been fun and interesting, and it's been a good, I don't know, reflection of the good old days, sort of. Sort of moment for me, pulling this one out kind of randomly and out of the blue. So give this one a try. Like I said, I'm going to find as many links as I can down in the information bar, and so I'll make it really easy for you too. And you know, we're going to feature an album a month, and we're just going to slowly build our collection and reminisce and learn new things and try to grow as individuals. And we're going to do this with all of the different forms of media, but today we're talking about the album for this month. So there you have it. If you have any questions for me at all, then, you know, feel free to ask, but really I would just encourage you to just let the music speak for itself. Okay? Just do your homework, do your learning, and just get familiar that way. Alright, so if you are new to my channel, then please subscribe. And we're just making, you know, new friends here. And if you are enjoying these videos, and if this is kind of fun for you and you like sort of making new friends and sharing information and talking about new things, old things, and all things in between, then subscribe and don't forget to like this video. And I will see you guys next time.